I've been talking a bit more about how we kind of combine some of these different, I don't know what you'd call them, but I guess, astrology, numerology, human design, Chinese zodiac. So I find it's really easy to combine numerology and Chinese zodiac because you can easily blend these like over a year, since Chinese zodiac is more built around the year you were born. And it goes through like a 12-year cycle, and then it comes back around to that animal. So obviously, it also goes through different elements, and that changes each year as well. So that's a way that that can tie into astrology, but it's still, there's different elements. There's more elements in Chinese zodiac. So that's interesting as well. But I really like to combine numerology and astrology because what you can kind of see if you break down the day, the actual number that a person was born with like their sun sign, I guess in particular. That's really easy to work out. And you can work out a lot about a person by having these two details. Um, you know, does a person have, like, number one, for instance? Maybe they were born on the first. And because of that, they're going to be more of a action oriented, kind of direct sort of person. Now, does this always guarantee? Obviously, in my experience, they are definitely more initiative based people. They do go after what they want, and they are more direct about it. Again, the sun sign that's related to it can change that flavor a little bit, but it tends to be more direct in my experience, even if it's a sign that their sun sign isn't direct. Like, I've seen it consistently. If they have one of the master numbers, you know what I mean? 11, 22, or 33. These are really interesting people as well. They really stand out, and they tend to be aware or even more mature at a younger sort of age, which is really interesting as well. So all of these things need to be considered, and I was thinking of making some, I mean, I will, making some different readings to combine them, because I feel like just even like little ones, you know what I mean? Because it sort of shows a lot more about people when you can kind of look at these sorts of things. So, yeah, again, it is interesting, and there is a big difference, right? I mean, obviously, when it comes to just sun sign alone, your tying in numerology, your birthday is definitely going to give you a pretty decent amount of information. But the decan, so which three of the decans is it for that element, and that sign? Because that changes the environment. Those are pretty easy to work out just by knowing the person's birthday, and month. If you know their birthday, month, and year, you can work out their life path. So there's all these little things, and you don't need a lot of information to kind of work all that out, which is really interesting. But each of these create a different sort of dynamic in a person. And again, the further you go, astrology obviously can tell you like the actual plan, so to speak, all the pieces of the pie, so to speak, for that person's existence for this life. And then, you can go even deeper with human design. Human design can be a bit trickier because it's related to centers, kind of like chakras. So again, if you know much about chakras, there's even two extras in terms of the centers in human design, where there's 7 main chakras, throughout the body in terms of energy centers. There's 9 centers in the human design body graph. So there's a couple that cross over, and then there's a couple, obviously there's 2 that are different. And then within those centers, you have, a handful of gates. And each of those gates have their own title, their own experience. And again, it depends on each person's chart. And even sometimes you can even put in planets and asteroids into into those gates. So that's a good way to combine them as well. So I do like to combine because the more detail you have, the more you understand. And sometimes by having that extra detail, you can kind of work things out that you weren't able to before, if that makes sense. So that's interesting also. But yeah, I do enjoy all of these because of their differences, and they each plug different gaps so that you can understand things. And then again, I also prefer them for different things, like Chinese astrology, for instance. I think it's really good for mapping out the year. Like, what is this year going to look like? Based on that animal, how is that going to affect you? You know, is this an animal that you get along with based on your animal? Sometimes this, and that's why I think it's good to go to some of the other systems for more complicated personal matters. But this can help you understand, is this going to be a good year to do this or to create this or to become this, or is it not? Now, you may not want to just completely, get too woo-woo about it, obviously. Not, well, I can't do that because the year doesn't, stipulate. But it helps you know how to make those plans, I think, and it gives you a bit more of a guide. Again, based on what element you are and the element of that year, that also can help you work out. Are those elements compatible? Is this something that you'll find easy and natural, or will it be challenging? So those are helpful in that regard. Numerology will help you in terms of anything to do with a number and what that number explains, right? That really helps you in that arena, and you can apply that in a lot of different ways. If you want to understand your actual purpose, you know what I mean? Like what is it that you're supposed to be doing while you're here? And what areas of your life does that affect, right? I think that's a really good one for that. And compatibility and stuff like that is astrology. Astrology is kind of an all-encompassing one. Human design, like I said, I feel like that one goes deeper. So like if you really want to understand yourself or someone else on a deeper level, do you want to see if those things work between you or not? Like it gets really, really complicated. And the more complicated it becomes, the more interesting it becomes. But again, you have to be the kind of person who enjoys learning that sort of stuff. So, but I think all of these systems help us take things that are unknown to us and uncertain into the realm of certainty. And then we can make those decisions. What do we do past that point? Right? Which I don't know. I think it's a good thing. And some people feel differently. Some people are like, oh, well, I don't like the idea of it being mapped out. It isn't really mapped out. It's just it's a guide. And it's like anything. When you're in a dark tunnel, you won't be able to find your way out until you see the light at the end, right? Well, again, these systems are that light at the end of the tunnel. So it just helps you get out of the dark. It doesn't predetermine your fate. You're not locked into something. It's more, this is what you are. You're fumbling around into a dark tunnel. You can't see anywhere to go, and you're going to be stuck there forever not knowing. Where these systems just show you the direction. And it's not even that you have to go. It's just you're more likely to do that because it's what you're going to do anyway. So why not? It just helps you get there. So I don't know. To me, it just makes sense. And when it comes to these systems, they're not really wrong. Sometimes it depends on how you interpret it, depends on how you use it. But I've never seen it be wrong. And it can help us make those decisions, to see, well, am I being the more insecure, low vibration version, of this number, this sign, this animal, this element, this gate? Or am I more the high vibration or somewhere in the middle? And again, it can be different per different circumstance, but that's why I think it makes it easier. And I've found since studying these things, not just of myself, but of others, I've started to see consistent patterns. Like consistent to the point where I can rely on it because it's, and even when I talk to people and I tell them, I'm like, yeah, well, you know, people tend to tell me their challenges, and I don't mind. I'm happy with that. I just go into looking for potential solutions and ways to kind of work with it, you know, that kind of thing. But they'll mention something, and like if I know their chart already, you know, I'll say something like, oh, well, you know, the reason you do that is because of this placement, you know, and this is what you can do with it if you so desire. And you know, most people are kind of like, wow, that's actually exactly how I feel. And I'm like, I know. Because it's the same way for myself with my own chart. Like I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that fits. And every single other person I've read, and I don't even know how many charts I've read. I've lost count. I haven't done as many human design chart readings in comparison to astrology, but it still resonates. You know, as soon as I get to know a person and I read their human design chart, it goes even deeper, though. It's even more complicated, which is fascinating. So again, it really depends on how people want to go. You know, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because the deeper you go, the more it makes sense. I can't get words out. Makes sense. That's funny. Oh, you know, when I was a kid, I used to I don't know if it was a stutter or a stammer or something, and I found that my thoughts were so fast, it was difficult to get them out of my mouth quick enough. And I find that I'm also like that when taking notes. And when I was a kid, I had a lot of trouble with that because it was, I would forget, right? Because my mind was already moving on to the next thing. And like I said, my mouth couldn't go quick enough and my hands couldn't go quick enough. I still struggle with that sometimes. And obviously I just did. But this is what I mean. It's these kinds of things when we understand this complexity about ourselves. And, you know, I'm not going to put myself down over it, which is what a lot of people do, but I don't recommend it because it is what it is. Like everybody has their things. And being a fast thinker, that my mouth and my hands can't catch up, I don't see that as a bad thing. It's challenging sometimes. But this just goes to show the more we understand ourselves and the more we accept what we're like, the easier it becomes. The easier it becomes to accept who we are. And other people may not understand. And again, the less you understand these systems, then I find the harder it is to truly understand and to have words and language as a way to describe it. So, yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of the video for today. I just think these systems they've made my life so much easier. And I find with people who know it or people that I've helped, it makes their life easier too. And I think it just helps sort of decode, decode things, which it is. It's really, really interesting. Anyway, see you guys next time.